Pappy Winchester. This is a simple auction game set in the Old West among siblings that don't like each other all that much. The premise is that the old man has kicked the bucket without really leaving any clear instructions to the people that are supposed to get the property, the money, the land, the ranch, and they are not too happy about it and they'll fight for control of things. At the end of the day, however, they are fairly agreeable to each other because basically they will keep buying the right to control certain things on the board from each other. We'll see how that works. First, a look at the board. It is divided into areas that are what the players will try to acquire. Not all areas are worth the same. There are different wrinkles here. Each area receives a random bonus token at the beginning of the game, so I set it up that way. You have a locomotive and a boat that are placed in that position at the beginning of the game. They may be moved and used to score by using this kind of token. There are also other tokens that will give you different advantages. The saloon, money will be put there in certain moments during the game, and then money can be retrieved from there. Then we have the ranch and the mines. They're based on the same idea that you take a random card from the ranch deck and from the mine decks. You don't look at the ones that you place there. You don't look at the ones that are left behind. The value on the other side indicates how valuable the ranch and each mine is, but you don't know. The mines may be worth a lot, worth nothing. You just don't know. That's a chance that you are taking. Now, the game is simplicity itself. I would say it's the simplest auction game that one can think of. It's just bare bone auctions. The idea is each round we draw a random token from the spool here, and that will determine which area we'll be fighting for control of. Say, suppose we drew 12 and now we have to bid for that area. We start from the player that won the previous auction, and the player simply announces a number, say 2,000, and then we go around. If you bid, if you want to stay in the auction, you have to bid at least 1,000 more than the person before you. Otherwise, you can pass, but in which case you're out of that auction. You cannot come back later. You will not get a chance of acquiring that area. Money is represented by paper money. Looks nice and thematic, but it's paper money. It's just annoying. When I have this in my hand, I have to count to make sure of how much I have exactly so that they can bid and know that I don't bid too much. And when I have to give you 5, then I have to double check that there aren't 2 that are stuck together. The logistics of paper money just are annoying. They have always been in every game that featured this element, and they are annoying here too. That's just what happens when you play with paper money. So, we say that a player won this auction by bidding 10,000. Now, the player will place a control marker of their color in that area, will take the bonus token and resolve it. Here, for example, the player can choose to move the locomotive or the boat and then score $1,000 and collect $1,000 for each of their areas adjacent to where the locomotive or boat is now. Thus, the rumor will allow a player to look at any card that is face down. Can be the ranch card, can be a mine card. Important also, players also have other cards. There are secret objective cards. Each player starts with 2, and if you complete them, then you'll score different things. Also, during setup, you will take the money, make piles, and then you will put a number of face-up public objectives. So there are these 2 decks of public and secret objectives represented by icons so that they don't have to print the cards in different languages. And you look at the back of the rulebook and you know what the secret and shared objectives are. If you want to know, you can just pause the video and take a closer look here. So these are things that you will want to accomplish, and maybe possibly figure out what it is that the players are trying to accomplish so you can get in the way and prevent them from doing so, which is why with the rumor token you can look at the ranch, the mines, or at somebody else's secret objectives, for example. And then the saloon, you get to collect the money that is in the saloon. So that's for the bonus tokens, but remember, you had to pay for it. The money that you commit to say, I buy this one for 10,000, is distributed among the other players. Say we're playing with 3 players, I got control of that one for 10,000, then each player gets 5. If I got control of that one with 7, then each player gets 3, and the remaining one is placed here. So money is always circulating, and basically the way in which new money is added to the system is when those shared tasks are completed. Because remember, when basically it will look like this, there will be shared tasks with piles of money underneath, and when somebody completes a shared task, they demonstrate that they fulfill the requirements, and then they get the money. And that's how you have new money entering the system. Otherwise, it's always the same bunch of money going around. Well, this is the idea, really. The game is that simple. When you complete an auction, take the bonus token, pay the other players, and put some money in the saloon, possibly. You draw another random token that determines where the next auction is going to be, and you continue like this until all areas have been assigned to people. At the point, you check and see who the wealthiest player is. One last thing is duels. Each player has a duel token. Once per game, if you're in an auction that only has 2 players left in it, you can declare a duel. You spend your one-time token, and then simply these 2 cards are shuffled and given to the 2 players in the duel. When somebody declares a duel, the auction interrupted, no one can bid money anymore, the auction will be resolved randomly with a 50% chance, because these are shuffled and given to the 2 players involved in the duel. The player that gets this card loses, the player that gets this card wins, and wins the auction, and so simply pays the people and performs all of those tasks as normal. Auction after auction for every area on the board until all areas have been assigned, and at the point the wealthiest player is the winner of the game. Pappy Winchester, it is a simple auction game. I really believe that they wanted to go for as simple an auction game as they could. Maybe this way they could be family friendly, could appeal to casual gamers, but I'm afraid that they went a little too far. This is too basic, too linear, too much of just an auction, really, to appeal, at least to me and to my gaming group. I mean, there's nothing wrong in a game where the main mechanic is to bid for stuff. And one of my favorite games that I love immensely, Feast of Dragonstones, that's what it does. However, in that game you have different types of resources, it's not just dollars. And what you gain will allow you to trigger different things, so there's a lot of thinking that goes into what you want to acquire and how and in what order, etc, etc, etc. Here, they tried to do a little bit of that with those bonus tokens and with those secret objectives, but ultimately it still feels bland and repetitive. It still feels like I'm taking this token instead of that other one, and they gave me a little advantage here, a little advantage there. And for an auction game, it is surprisingly multiplayer solo, because ultimately, yeah, I can go and look at your cards, but I'm not going to go out of my way to take stuff that would allow you to score that doesn't otherwise interest me, simply too costly in terms of opportunity cost. So people are going to go for their own objectives, and in the end, we see who does it. But again, the point is simply that we simply go around turn after turn, doing the same auction and getting this time a token with this face, and this time a token with this other symbol, and making a little more money or less money. It just feels repetitive. It has to be, again, if you're playing with really, really young gamers, truly casual gamers that believe that the epitome of strategy is Monopoly, well, there's more here than then. And there are also auctions in Monopoly. You have this here, you have those auctions with a little more control. But if Monopoly is the bar that we're trying to exceed, we can do that with Pappy Winchester, but it's not necessarily that big of a triumph. Just too simple, too linear, not truly a lot to grab the interest of committed hobby players in 2019. 20 years ago, sure, would have been great. Today, not so much. Also, we observed that the game does not scale all that well with different numbers of players. You really need the full complement of 5 players. Because the rewards are always the same, regardless of number of players. A certain thing will always give you 3,000. A certain thing will always give you 5,000. With with lower number of players, there are more incentives to pass and simply to hoard all of the money that other people are giving you. Because if you have 5 players and somebody buys something for 10,000, then the remaining players get 2,000 each, and 2,000 go to the saloon. With 3 players, still somebody buys something for 10,000, well, now you get 5. And the thing that is to fight for maybe wasn't, again, very often you feel like you can gain more by hoarding money. In fact, there may be cases where you completed your objectives. In the last phase of the game, you completed your objectives, or there aren't any that you can complete anymore. And really, it's not profitable to spend more than 3,000 to get a token for the sake of it, 2,000 or whatever it is. Then the last part of the game, which is where in a really exciting game it becomes more exciting, have a climax, the game really flatlines, because maybe actually those public objectives also, they've all been completed, so there's less stuff to do, there isn't much the scores on the board, and then the game slows down into this less exciting auctions. And with 3 players, the rule is always the same. You win if you keep a low profile, you let the other 2 people fight against each other, and you keep getting a lot of money for doing so. So you really need 5 players so that the money circulates and the payoffs that you get from not bidding are not constantly and consistently better than what you would acquire, because that gives an incentive for non-bidding. Especially for a low number of players, our impression is that the Pappy Winchester fails to give an incentive towards the interesting action, and that's not what we want in modern game design. Pappy Winchester, play with 5 young players or 5 very casual players. But for committed players that play regularly, most likely it is just too simple, too linear, too straightforward, and repetitive. Paper money, I hate it. So do you. We don't even need to talk about it too much. Paper money, gosh. Pappy Winchester, a little too simple in my opinion.